All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1,000,000 Relationships Podcast. And this will be the second interview so far I've done in my pickup truck. The last interview I did with James, I was in the driveway of my house. Today, I decided to drive to a park. And they're still there doing the hardwood floors at my house. We should be back into the house another day or so. And you know what, though? That is the beauty of just kind of having, well, for one, being an entrepreneur and being resourceful. We just figure out how to make things work. But also just being able to have a little flexibility and not let that prevent us from doing the things that we want to do and making the kind of impact that we want to make. And today I'm here with Brian. I know, Brian, you and I were talking a little bit before we hit this record button. You were introduced to me by Sue, which anytime anybody comes via an introduction, especially as, what's the right word? Just high praise is what Sue about you. It's always somebody that I want to meet and have a conversation with and get to know. So I am just honored to be here with you today, Brian, and looking forward to having this conversation and getting to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, delighted to be on with you, Kevin.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll start by just, I'll turn it over to you and let you share a little bit of your background, you know, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you get to do. And we'll just kind of start there and like set a little bit of context for everybody and let everybody know who Brian is and what's Brian all about.
All right. Well, I started out in corporate America, kind of worked my way through college at UPS, got promoted, went to California, joined PepsiCo, got promoted, joined a consulting firm, did very well. And in the end, wanted to do my own thing. So years ago, I broke off, started my own kind of consulting firm, working with local CEOs and really trying to figure out, you know, what was the value I was going to bring. And initially thought, well, I'll bring them techniques, I'll bring them ideas, stuff like that. And I realized, Kevin, that they all have great ideas. What they really needed to do was learn to execute more effectively. So I spent the last couple decades really, really kind of honing down what it takes to execute at a high level. And my business partner and I wrote a book called The 12-Week Year. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's in 15 languages. And, it's an execution system. So what we do is we help our clients accomplish more in 12 weeks and most do in 12 months by focusing on helping them implement and execute more effectively. And we work with everybody from big corporate clients like Allstate, State Farm, groups like that, Medtronic, to individuals from all walks of life. So we're blessed in that what we do makes a difference for people in their business and in their personal life. So I love it. It's awesome.
Very cool. And so if we look, I mean, and so do you serve, you mentioned you serve big companies and you serve small companies as well. What are like just a couple experiences you've had over your time of doing the work that you do and working with those kind of clients have just really stood out for you as like some of the just really rewarding experiences?
Well, there's a lot of them. The cool thing is we get emails every week from people telling us how we changed their life, from all over the world, which is really cool. I would say, one of the most rewarding ones though was Barbara Shorrock. She contacted us. She had just retired from being a real estate agent, kind of looking forward to the next phase of her life. She got our book and was starting to use it, and she found out she had terminal cancer.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things Barbara told us is she said, at that point in time, I couldn't plan out years ahead because I didn't know. But she said I could certainly plan for the next 12 weeks. And so our system, our process made the last months of her life much more rewarding than it would have been. And so that was just one that stands out for me because it had such an impact at a critical time for her and her daughter.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, talk about just, a rewarding and fulfilling experience, being able to help somebody at that stage and just make those last, those last weeks are just so powerful for them and their family and stuff. Wow. That's really cool.
And then we got other examples that, where we've helped people like quadruple their income in 12 weeks or 24 weeks, which are just as rewarding, just in a different way.
You bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
life changing. Either way, it's life changing. And that's the fun part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, very cool. Okay, so I can see why Sue was so adamant about connecting you and I. I mean, you guys are obviously all about making such a big impact in the world through your business and through the work that you do and stuff. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listener. So here's the question I want to ask and I want to dig into a little bit with you. Have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Brian, I am just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this, as well as be able to give you the opportunity to honor somebody or somebody's who have had such a profound impact on your life and on your business.
Yeah, there are a number of folks, my mom and dad starting with, right? My dad was my hero, big influence. And my dad was always about, look, if you're going to do something, do it to your best of your ability or don't do it. And so that has served me well. I would not be where I'm at today had I not had that advice and that counsel and that coaching growing up. Another one though that really impacted my career was when I hired on with a consulting firm, Bernadette Sen, Senn, worked there. And I had always wanted to public speak. I was scared to death to do it. I thought it was really cool though. And she became my mentor around public speaking.
Okay.
I got this opportunity to do all these workshops with her. I learned a ton from her. She sewed a lot into me. I would not, I speak on some of the biggest stages around the world. That I don't think I'd be there without Bernadette's help. She was such a great coach, such an influence for me. I don't think I'd be doing the stuff I'm doing today had she not been in my life.
Yeah. Wow. This is really, it's interesting because before we hit the record button, and I was telling you early in doing this podcast, one of my early guests who was a friend, and I said, hey, who's the one who's had such a big impact? And they just like, Kev, this is crazy. I can't do one. But one of the people that he did honor was one of his high school teachers for different person, but same kind of result is it got him into public speaking. And he has done so much public speaking since then. And I looked at your website. How often are you doing public speaking in one way or the other? It looked like from your website that I did research on it quite a bit.
Quite a bit. Yeah. We're either doing, I was in Dominican last week giving a presentation. So doing a lot of virtual too. I built a studio and stuff like that. And so I do a lot of it, and a lot of the other stuff that I do came out of that too. The other person, oddly enough, was at the same company. It was Paul Dinkins when he asked me to move into sales, and he was on the sales team. And I thought, sales, that's slimy, that's smarmy. I don't want to do that. But the more we talked, the more I realized that professional sales was really just something that a skill set that could benefit, because everywhere in life you've got to sell. You got to sell your ideas, you got to sell yourself. And so Paul took me under his wing. I learned a ton from Paul on how to sell. That's how to sell relationally, how to uncover the need, if we can fulfill it and solve the problem they have, how to present that. So just learned a ton from Paul too. Became a good friend of mine, and appreciate the impact he had in my career as well. Because when I went out as an entrepreneur, had I not had that skill set, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
You can be really good at the technical side, but if you can't sell it, you don't eat.
Yeah.
So probably another person that I don't think I'd be where I'm at today without Paul's influence and his coaching.
So this is really interesting because so let me ask you then, I kind of, piggybacking on what you just shared there, Brian. So what is your outlook, if you will, on sales? How do you look at sales as it relates to the work that you guys do?
Yeah, so everything we do is designed to help people accomplish more of what they want faster. And we have a lot of programs that do that. The beauty of our stuff is we know it works. because
Yeah.
we put our heart and soul in it. We've done it with thousands and thousands of people, like we pointed out earlier, big companies to individuals. And so there's no question it works, which really makes selling for us a whole lot easier because
Mhm.
we know it works and we believe in it. You know,
Yeah,
I think it would be tough is if you're selling something you don't believe in.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so selling for us though, it's changed over the years because when we first started, we just sold to big companies because we could sell to an executive buy for many. Kevin, we've had to learn how to market more with individuals and things like that. So it's shifted a little bit for
Okay.
us, and it's challenged us to kind of learn a bit more about that. And we're still on that learning curve, but it's paying off. It's doing great. So I see sales though as just really a conversation. It's
Yeah.
a conversation about what needs do you have, what offerings do we have that might fulfill those needs, and if it's a good fit, let's roll. If not, hey, great meeting you anyways. You know.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And you're right. That's what I found too, is that it's really about the person. I look at it, for me personally, it's more of like kind of an interview process on both fronts, on them
Right.
and on me.
Yeah.
I'm finding more about them because with what I do, it's not just me bringing my gifts and my unique abilities to the table. It's as much about who I work with and who they are and how they show up as it is about what I do.
Yeah.
And so it's finding out what, and I really, too, that there needs to be some kind of an emotional connection. Why does somebody want to do something? Yeah, I want to grow the company, I want to add revenue, but why? Why do I want to do that?
Right.
And I'm always looking for that piece too. Is that what's
Yeah,
really
Kevin, your volume dropped dramatically. I'm having a tough time hearing you. Not sure what
there?
happened. There we go.
Got better now?
Yeah, much better, much better.
Okay, very good. Okay.
I
So
caught it. It was low, but yeah, we're the same way. Look, we're not high pressure, right? If we've got to talk you into buying something from us, you're not a good client. You're not a good prospect. And so we've had clients that wanted to hand us their credit card, and we said, no, we're not a good fit. We're not the right people for you. So, yeah, it's a process.
yeah, yeah. So I know, so you mentioned Bernadette, you mentioned Paul. Was there anybody else that you wanted to honor in the process? Anybody else coming up that you wanted that has just had a big impact on your life, on your business?
I've been blessed in that I've had all people throughout my whole life have an impact. But one of the guys that I don't think I'd be where I'm at without him is my business partner, Michael Lennington. And,
Okay.
he and I met years ago at that same consulting firm where Bernadette and Paul worked. And Michael and I got on a couple projects together. He went off to Europe, did some stuff. We got back together later, but he's co-authored the book. He helps co-develop all the stuff. He thinks differently than I do. We found a way that we work really good together. We play off one another well, and he's probably one of my best friends now too. So, yeah, huge impact in my life.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I'll tell you, it's really interesting. We start noticing the people that have had such a profound impact on us,
Yeah.
and really looking that, yeah, there's a lot of things in our lives that would have never transpired if not for the people that have molded and helped shape us and stuff.
Right. Right.
If you look,
The other one, Kevin, that I have to
but
tell you is my wife, right? I mean, I've had a blessed life, and she's probably the biggest blessing in my life in so many ways. I mean, we've taken on life together. We've gone through all kinds of, we're both cancer survivors. We've gone through financial hardships. We've stayed the course, and she's a huge encouragement and just an amazing person. And as I said, such a blessing in my life. My life would be very different without Judy. Not as rich, not as fulfilling. I don't think I'd be where I'm at.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what, man, I'm going to second that when I think about my life too, because same thing. I think behind every successful man, there's definitely a supportive woman for sure. And you and I are both blessed in that regard. And if you think about some of the people that you've mentioned, your Bernadette and Paul and your partner Michael and your wife, and if you look back at the experience, things that have unfolded, things where you have had a really big impact, but you also realize, that would have never happened if I hadn't had the relationship with whoever, any one of the people that we've talked about. So I kind of want to because part of this is just to really look at, the impact that is possible because of these relationships in our lives.
Yeah.
And so what kind of comes up for
Well,
you?
just look at our book, right? Our book's a New York Times bestseller. It's sold more than 500,000 copies. That book would not be the book it is if it weren't for Michael.
Yeah.
He had a big piece in that book. I can't tell you the pieces I wrote versus the pieces he wrote, but if I were writing it on my own or with somebody else, it'd be a different book. And, would it be as successful? I don't know. I highly doubt it. So that's just one example.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Brian, I really appreciate you having this conversation today, and we have definitely delivered. I know for the listeners, my goal has always been that I just want to use the conversations that we've had here today to just really kind of just allow them to just kind of intentionally want to place more focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives. And we have definitely accomplished that here today. And for anybody listening to this, Brian, that is like, man, Kev, I really like Brian. I like who he is. I like how he shows up. I like what he stands for. How can they get more information on what you guys are doing at 12-week year?
Yeah, I appreciate that. 12weekyear.com is 12, the digits, 12weekyear.com is the easiest way you can find us. You can reach out to us there. There's a little kid on a little motorbike behind you that's going back and forth. It's kind of cute.
I hear about that. He's having fun.
He's photobombing you, man. Here's another thought for your listeners too. As I think about the people I've impacted, right? The other side of that coin is, who have you impacted, and are you intentional about impacting others? And so one of my goals in life is to impact a positive impact on 1 million or more people. And I think we've done that through the book and the training we do and stuff like that. But really thinking about, the impact we can have, because like with Paul and Bernadette, I doubt very much they even know the impact they had on me.
Okay.
Right. But they did. And it wasn't just me. They're the type of people that impacted others probably the same way. And because that's the way they live their lives. And I think so for your listeners, as you think about who's impacted you, right? For me anyways, I turn the mirror and I go, okay, how am I giving back? Right. I've been blessed. I've been given. How am I returning that? Where am I investing in other folks and encouraging them? And I hope I got a trail of that as well in my past, like Bernadette, like Paul, like Michael, like Judy. Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, because that is, I know I'm kind of one of these behind the scenes guys. I play matchmaker connector for a lot of really awesome entrepreneurs, and in many cases, a lot of people don't even know I was there, but I know. And it's really fulfilling, really rewarding to know that because you've connected these two people, look what came from that. Look at the impact that was made from that. And that is incredibly gratifying, incredibly rewarding. And when my buddy Brad Costanzo was like, Kev, he's like, man, for a guy like you who values relationships so much, man, you should totally be doing a podcast. And here's why. And when he mapped that out, I'm like, man, you're right. Yeah. You're right. And this has been, like I told you before we hit the record button, one of the most rewarding things I've done in my 27-year entrepreneurial career. And I just so look forward to doing these interviews each week and stuff. And Brian, I want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today, because it really means a lot to me. It was such an honor and a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more. And any last thing that you would like to share before we call it a wrap?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's good stuff. Just being mindful. It's nice to take a moment. I haven't done it in a while and think about, the impact some of these people have had in my life. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that with you, and hope it benefits your listeners.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Paul. And it was such an honor talking with you, and look forward to sharing this interview with a lot of other entrepreneurs and founders.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.